Hello everyone, how are you? It's been a while since my last upload. Life is pretty busy for me. Yeah, I just want to let everyone know I just self-released a new album called Surfaces, which actually marks 20 years of me publicly putting out my music, which if you think is really long time, it's pretty much half of my life. It is available digitally and on a cassette tape. Cassette tape, as usual, is limited to only 50 copies worldwide, and it has 2 exclusive tracks. Back in 2003, my first album was released on my friend's label called Surfaces, which is why I decided to call my album Surfaces as well. The album is a respect, I don't know, paying my dues to the 90s music scene, because this is the time when I got most influenced by what was happening musically, and just basically I think it was one of the best eras in my life. So musically, the album is filled with jungle, drum and bass, and even some jazzy instrumental hip hop. And right now I want to showcase one of the tracks on the album. It's actually called, the title track is called Surface, and I want to show you how I made the track. As you can see, this whole track was made entirely inside of a computer, and I've only used the hardware just to process my breaks. So I run them through the Guide S1000 and my analog desk EQs and saturation. That's about it. Everything else was done in a computer, as I said. So this technique I've been using since the very beginning, when I just first started making music with computers, when the computers became like available as a household item back in the late 90s. This is pretty much what this is how I've been making music for 10 or 15 years, and before jumping onto hardware-only music production, which changed the whole workflow, how I make music. Anyway, it requires me jumping from program to program. One program to make my breaks, another program to put that all together, and so on. So for the breaks, I'm using Fruity Loops to program my breaks. I found that this program is pretty flexible and versatile into making my breaks complex if I want, or simple if I want to, but it's just kind of like really easy to work on my breaks. So for example, I have this chop of Funky Drummer. And once I try to work with maybe 8 patterns, I don't know how you call, like double patterns. And once I feel that, I usually change it 3-4 more times. And I like to have a variety of differently programmed breaks. Anyway, I got carried away. Same with other loops as well. So once I've got my breaks, I open them in SoundForge, and I do sort of like manipulation to make them sound more interesting. For example, like this. So yeah, I try to not spend too much time on doing that, but back in the day, like 10, 15, 20 years ago, I would spend hours and hours just micro-editing every little sound, every detail, every second. So it took me sometimes just 2 days just to do those, you know, glitchy sort of programming, which I just don't have time for that anymore. And I don't want my tracks to be as complex as I used to want them to be. So once I have that done, I usually start programming, putting things together inside a Cubase. I also convert every MIDI signal that I do to audio, and then I just work with audio instead of working with MIDI. While my breaks are programmed in Fruity Loops, I use a couple of soft scenes to add the music and other sounds. So for example, I'm using this free sampler called Grace that I play 808 bass and some pads. And I use this soft synth called Repro 5, which is one of my favorite for now. It's for making all kinds of really interesting sounds. So yeah, once I play everything, as I said, I just convert to audio and then I start mixing it. For mixing, since this is like very old program, it's only 32-bit and it only works with really old plugins that are also 32-bit, but it's very difficult to find some 32-bit, some new 32-bit plugins, so I'm even like just using the free one. So I'm using this EQ, it's a free EQ, and I'm using it on every track, and it's very simple. I'm just trying to either cut something or add a little bit just to have it sit in the mix better. I also added a bit of a tape hiss. I can't even hear it. It's very, very quiet, just to give it a bit of a analogness, if you know what I mean. And I'm using a little bit of automation, just to add a bit of delays and stuff to my breaks. So it's pretty much short and simple. That's what I do. And now let's listen to the track.